Today on the podcast, we're talking about one of the hardest questions that we face in relationship. One that most of us will ask at some point, but that not all of us really know how to answer. Am I with the right person? Sometimes this question is quiet and persistent, and sometimes it's really loud and really urgent. It might show up like looping thoughts or distancing yourself physically and emotionally. Sometimes it looks like sudden blow-ups that seem to be out of proportion in the moment, but that happen because we are afraid to really ask this question. Most of us don't talk openly about this, especially if we're in a committed relationship, if we're married, if we've been together for a long time. We try to figure it out silently. Sometimes we try to figure it out logically. And most of the time, we try to figure this out alone. But this isn't a question that you can think your way through. At least not enough to get a really satisfying, clear answer. So what we're talking about today is a way to allow the answer you're seeking to come through you. Not by logic or reasoning, but by connecting to a part of yourself that knows. It knows what you want, that's willing to make the hard choices to help you bring more of that into your life, and to make sure that you're accessing it in your relationship. What we're talking about is where to go when you're ready to do this noble work, stopping the spin out, stopping the endless arguments, stopping the patterns that make this question burn inside of you. And today we're going to be talking about also how you can start listening with more honesty, more clarity to what's really happening for you, inside of you. And men especially are usually taught to ignore this process, to ignore this inner wisdom. We're talking about cultivating maybe the most valuable asset that any of us can have, and that's available. It lives inside all of us. It helps us navigate the hardest questions we'll face in life. That's what today's episode is about. And by the end of the episode, I'll share 2 specific tools that you can choose the next time you find yourself in that uncertain space. The next time you find yourself really questioning, when you're tired of the same fights, unsure whether something's off with your partner or inside yourself, and really longing to feel more grounded in what's true and aligned with your highest vision for your life. This is Reclaiming the Gentleman. I'm Dave Lashansky. So I want to start this episode by grounding us in what I believe is really the hardest question, often the loneliest question, and often the most misunderstood question. When you're in a relationship and you're asking yourself, is this person really right for me? Maybe it's, why can't we figure this out? Often it's, is this how it's always going to be? It's possible you've grappled with this unconsciously, like you haven't let yourself ask the big question directly, but you find it's leaking out sideways, right? Maybe you're shutting down, you're overly sensitive or irritable, you're suddenly having outbursts that you don't really even understand. So the whole point of this episode is for that moment, for those of you who are experiencing something like this in your relationship or in your life. It's muddy, it's confusing, and maybe it's happened because something's triggered it. Maybe you're realizing something never happens and you just don't know if this is the right relationship for you, the right thing for you. So what I want to help you do is know what to do when you're in this place. And the first step here really is you have to stop trying to think your way through it. I guarantee you have already tried that to an extent. We loop on thoughts. We try to think our way, solve our way to a logical conclusion, where really only deep presence, patience, and self-attunement can help you here. So what we're talking about is how to access that kind of depth of clarity, right? Not from making a pros and cons list, but the kind that emerges from within you when you finally let go, when you connect with something bigger than yourself and give yourself the space to surrender to that, to allow that to occupy your awareness and really feel what's happening underneath all the noise, the distractions, your obligations, what you need to do in life to survive. Now, here's the thing. We are far more powerful than we know. All of us have a capacity to listen inwardly, to receive real and powerful intuitive messages that help guide us toward the life we want, toward what we really want in a way that most of us were taught to ignore and avoid. We're talking about accessing that kind of wisdom, tuning into that kind of inner knowing, and doing that uniquely for you because it is different for everyone. This ability to listen inwardly, to get real with your own inner experience. You can call this intuition. You can call it inner knowing, the gut feeling, inner guidance. Some people call it spirituality, right? What all of these descriptions are trying to get at is your compass. And it's also the thing that we feel is hardest to access in those moments when we're lost in doubt or fear. The moments when we really feel like we need it most. And for some of you, this language might be sounding kind of abstract or spiritual, especially if you're someone who prides yourself on being rational or science-based, right? First off, what I'll say is this episode isn't about getting woo. It's about really developing a skill that most of us never try to cultivate, which is the ability to genuinely and honestly be with your inner experience, authentically, right? Nakedly, deeply enough to hear what's actually true for you, what you need, what you want, and what you're getting. That's not woo. The other thing I'll say about this is the research that's being done on intuition is so fascinating. And I'll link a PubMed article in the show notes here that is just really, really cool on the science of intuition. How people in really high stakes situations, nurses, firefighters, even competitive chess players are drawing on intuition in ways that we're really only just beginning to understand. It's really exciting and really cool. So if you're into the science of this, check it out. There's a lot more here. But I want to really ground this. I want this to be clear to you that most of us spend so much time avoiding our inner experience, the reality of our inner experience. And I believe that this is a skill that we can cultivate, that we can develop, that I know and have witnessed and have experienced for myself helps us answer this hard question. Am I doing the right thing? Am I with the right person? Am I making the right choice? Will this take me where I want to go? It doesn't necessarily mean hearing a clear yes or no either. Like a lot of people might have you believe. I mean, the coaching space is rife with this. Like, if it's not a clear yes or a hell yes, it's a clear no. It's not always that simple. But what I'm talking about in this episode is how we cultivate access to that knowing, access to those answers that might be more complex, that might lead us down a path into an inquiry that is valuable to us, that will eventually lead to an answer, maybe like a yes or a no. But that is honestly, genuinely reflecting what we want, what we need, and whether our choices are really reflecting that. The way to access this, really the point of this episode, is to cultivate a personal access point to what is sacred for you. This is your way in, whether you are religious or spiritual or not at all. What is sacred offers us a state of reverence, a state of awe, where we can really honor what we are receiving, honor what we are experiencing, honor our inner experience enough so that we can receive, understand, pursue what it is that we need most. Because too often we get lost in the mire of the mind. We start searching for facts in a realm where the unspeakable rules. This is why love is hard. It's part of the unspeakable world. Alan Watts has this amazing speech. He describes this as the moment where we start truly seeing, hearing, and experiencing the world for what it is, outside of the labels and the familiarity. This state of being, this state of reverence and awe, where even a leaf or a sound suddenly contains all of the mystery of the cosmos inside of it. Because we stop trying to quantify or qualify or rationalize it. We stop trying to put it into a box of what we know, what's familiar, and appreciate it for exactly what it is in its most essential form. This is a sacred experience. It is an experience of reverence. It's an experience of awe that no matter your personal beliefs, all of us can tap into. Whether it's a leaf, a piece of music that does it for you, maybe it's watching your children play, whatever it is, having a connection to reverence, having a pathway for reverence is the core skill we're talking about here. And when we start cultivating this access point, we gain clarity. From there, we start uncovering what it is that we really want, what it is eventually that we really need, what it is that hurts, what hasn't been named, and what's asking to be seen inside of us, inside of our relationships. Honestly, I think this is the most important relationship skill that we assume that we know because love is a powerful force. It makes us think we are connected to this state, right? But we spend enough time avoiding our inner experience, avoiding this realm, this unspeakable world, where our experience is the highest order, the only order of fact. The more we avoid that, the more we end up looping in this question of whether we're making the right choices. And we stay stuck in that, in our brains, trying to rationalize the unspeakable, trying to make a yes or no answer when the question isn't even clear enough yet. So in my 21-day program, we spend time talking about allowing the world to move us, right? Going slow enough, getting quiet enough to really tune in to that place, that realm, that unspeakable world I'm talking about. And I think the way that I want to ground what I'm talking about here for this episode is one of my own stories about finding stillness and being moved as a child that has continued to serve me in my adult life. And I'm hoping that maybe in hearing this, if you're not really sure what I'm talking about yet, something will click here. Like you'll remember, you'll imagine the power of a similar experience or memory you might have had. So when I was a kid, I think I was 3 or 4 years old, we had a pond near our house. And we'd go there every summer and play, and my friends would meet up there. It was awesome. There were tons of kids around. And one afternoon, one summer, I remember wading into the water. All the other kids were splashing and yelling and throwing balls and playing all around me. And as I'm wading in, I just stop. The water's about up to my knees, and I remember this so clearly, just standing there, knee deep, and watching the sunlight flicker on the water. It was like this golden runway leading straight to me. And my mom actually still tells this story of just watching me stand there in the middle of the chaos for what seemed to me like hours was probably like 10 minutes. But I still remember that feeling, like something's happening here. Something in the world and something inside of me were in sync. And I wouldn't have called this an intuitive clarity at the time. I wouldn't have called it anything. I was a kid, and kids are amazing. Kids are connected to their sense of awe all the time. They're great guides and teachers in this way. But what happened for me in that moment was a knowing, right? It was this moment of truth, a connection to the unspeakable world when I was just starting to find my voice. And now in my adult life, when I'm pursuing what's most important to me, right? Growing in my relationship, growing my businesses, growing my capacity to serve people, to serve men and couples, growing, learning, becoming successful, cultivating the means to start my own family. As I'm pursuing this in my adult life, this moment from when I was like 3 or 4 years old is where I go. Right? In that moment as a kid, I opened a portal to the unspeakable world. And when I'm struggling, when I'm in my own questions, struggling, going back into the water, seeing the sun dancing, brings me back in. It helps me see more clearly. And that memory keeps that door open for me so that I can access that space inside of myself because I have cultivated that access. The memory and the experience have become an inner sanctuary where I go when I'm looping, when I'm struggling. They're where I go to find my answers, to do the hard inquiry, to take me somewhere where I'm not the biggest thing and my fear is not the biggest thing. This is the work we can all cultivate for ourselves, and it is one of the most important assets for us in relationship. Because when we're questioning, right, when we're in the thick of that struggle, that terrifying sometimes question, that question that can prompt everything to change, for better or for worse, this is where we need to go. We don't need more noise, more input from others, more strategies, more lists. We need stillness, where something true, something honest, something that is untouched by our words and familiar feelings, something like that can rise to the surface. That sense of who we are in relationship to all things. That's where clarity lives. And whether you're with me in this or not, here's the thing. Most of us discount this practice. We discount what's available to us when we connect to our awe and our reverence to that spiritual realm where a leaf can hold the mysteries of the cosmos in it, where it stops being a leaf and starts being something to revere, something sacred. And when we discount a leaf as just a leaf, another thing, another green, simple thing we've seen a million times, it mirrors this thing that we all do too, of discounting our own inner experience. And I am just as guilty as anyone in this. And what we're practicing, cultivating here is holding both the world around us and our inner experience with this level of awe that allows it to be something that inspires awe, right? Something that inspires a state of reverence for us. Our inner experience can stir up a state of reverence for us. But modern life, it's made us all start to move so quickly. It's inundated us with so many distractions and easy hits of pleasure that we just subtly start to convince ourselves that there's nothing to be found in slowing down. That quietness isn't worth our time. That really listening in to the softest voice inside of us isn't worth our time. And some of us do believe in the value of going there. A lot of us cultivate meditation practices for this specific purpose, right? But often it is so uncomfortable to change our pace, right? To sit with these hard questions, to sit in the inquiry that we struggle to clear the noise. And when we do this, we start to discount those practices of slowing down. We think that there is no answer in them for us. Because when we are living in doubt, right, when we're struggling with these questions, it can feel dangerous. It can feel threatening. But I promise it is way more dangerous for your health and the health of your relationships to avoid this place, to avoid sitting with the hard questions when they keep bubbling up or leaking out sideways, right? And oftentimes, when we're struggling to meditate, when we're struggling to slow down, when we're struggling with these questions in the midst of all of that, I see this so often, it breaks my heart. We convince ourselves that there's something wrong with us, that we shouldn't be questioning something that's good, something that's sure. And as a result of this, as a result of convincing ourselves that there's something wrong with us, we stay silent. We abandon the inquiry. We don't voice it for ourselves. We avoid it. And it really doesn't work that way. Because here's what I need you to know. If you're hearing yourself in this, having doubts, no matter how wonderful or good your partner is, isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's not a sign that you're traumatized and unfixable and unlovable. Having doubts is part of life, and it is a huge part of intimacy. Because yes, what is waiting for you might be the hard choice that you're ready to move on. But more often than I think we'd like to believe, we realize that we ourselves are often running, avoiding the experience of being seen, of being loved wholly, genuinely, with abandon by someone else. I think that's what we're most afraid of, more than whether we're going to have to leave. Not always, but more often than I think we commonly hear about. But if we stay avoiding the inquiry, avoiding this questioning, am I in the right place? Am I making the right choice for me? If we ruminate on it and expect our thoughts to provide meaningful answers, we're never going to break through that threshold and access the kind of love that we really want, that deep down we know we deserve and need to decide if we're accessing in this relationship or need to pursue elsewhere. These answers don't come by forcing clarity, by thinking through logically. They come when we stop resisting the discomfort of slowing down and listening to our inner experience. When we access a state of reverence for what we find inside of us, and then allow the difficult questions to prompt whatever may come. That's clarity. When we stop asking, should I stay or should I go, which is often coming from fear, but start asking, what's here for me? What am I being called into? What am I being shown about myself? about my partner? What needs to be felt, expressed, owned, integrated? Maybe it's showing up more authentically. Maybe it's speaking into the thing you're afraid to talk about. Maybe it's choosing to stop abandoning yourself. Maybe that's choosing to end the suffering you've experienced because the relationship you're in isn't giving you enough of what you need to endure that suffering any longer. Or maybe it's identifying the boundary you've been afraid to assert. It's not always as simple as a yes or a no. But find your way in, your access to the space inside of you where you can open up to that wisdom, up to what it is that needs to be expressed, felt, seen clearly. That's the only way most of us are ever going to be able to answer that question of whether we're with the right person or not satisfyingly. And I promise to give you 2 powerful ways to move through these moments of questioning at the end of the episode. So here they are. And number 1 is this, and it's the simplest one, and I invite you to practice it. And it's this: allow yourself to be moved by the world around you. Let awe into your life. Let beauty in. Let something inside of you, outside of you, something soften you. Maybe it's a walk in nature. Maybe it's a song that you loved long ago. Allow yourself to be moved, to open the door to reverence, to honoring what's really true for you, to honoring what's really happening inside of you. Practice slowing down enough where you can start to see the world for the beauty of its mystery, outside of the boxes we put it in our everyday lives, outside of that box of familiarity where we know this is that and this is that, and we just see things for what they are. You won't always find clarity here. It won't always be easy to do. But practice cultivating access to that kind of state. And the more you do, the easier it will become. And the more you do when you need it most, when you're really in the thick of these questions, the hard ones, the ones you can't run from forever, the deeper your access to your reverence for what is inside and outside of you, the easier it will be for you to find your way back to your own aliveness. Okay, that's number 1. Allow yourself to be moved. Go slow enough to let yourself be moved. And number 2 is this: seek support. And I mean genuine professional support, not your friends, not your mentor, someone with no skin in the game for you. And I want to give you a very specific ask for this person, right? I'm not just saying go to therapy. I am saying come with this specific request. And it's this: please help me hear my own inner wisdom about this situation, whatever it is. Please help me understand what I want and what I need. Because the truth is this: we all at some point need each other for this. We all need help. We need people. We need mirrors that can show us what we can't find when we're so close to the problem, especially when we're feeling trapped in something. And you don't need the best coach or the best therapist or the best men's group in the world. You just need a clear intention and someone who can reflect back what they hear, which is like the most basic skill that any therapist or coach or group facilitator should have. And this is important. I think we often think we're so broken, our problems are so big that only the best or only some unique kind of person that we probably couldn't afford could help us. But more often than not, I think the truth is that we just need someone So if you've been putting off finding your group or your coach or your therapist, poke around, get quiet, and practice following your intuition. Maybe they went to school at the same university as you. Maybe they like the same book as you. Actually, that's how I find my therapist. It's really interesting. I'm remembering now that when I was first looking for a therapist, I had no idea what I was looking for. And the reason I chose this woman who I've been seeing as a therapist since, 2019, is she liked a Brene Brown book. And she turned out to be one of the most transformative human beings in my life. Just because she liked a book that I liked too. Let the signs be enough for you to take action. Because the worst case scenario, and this is true for literally any practice in this entire episode, the worst case scenario is that you make a mistake and have to try again. Learn to be detached and courageous here, and you will move mountains with ease. So, 2 practices. Be moved by the world around you. Go slow enough to be moved by the world around you, and seek support. So whether you're deeply in love and just scared to admit your doubts, or you're feeling lonely in a relationship that once felt like it was giving you everything, know that you're not alone. And this inquiry of whether you're in the right relationship is not one to be feared. It's one to be honored. And it will lead you where you need it to. When you learn to move toward it, not with panic or fear, but with patience and reverence, you'll discover what you're actually looking for. Not just clarity, but intimacy with yourself and with your life. Thank you for listening to this episode of Reclaiming the Gentle Man. As I said, we are closing out this first offering of the 21-day program, and I'm just so excited to share with you all what we come away with, what the men who've participated in this first round have experienced, the changes they've made and will continue to make. Because the point of this program isn't to fix us and fix our relationships in 21 days. It's to give us access, to give us tools to improve our relationships in the moments when it's hardest, and to improve ourselves alongside it. If you're interested in learning more or in joining the next offering of Reclaiming the Gentle Man, go to davelashansky.com, sign up for the waiting list, and you'll be one of the first to know when it goes live. It's happening soon. Follow me at Dave_Lashansky on Instagram to stay tuned for when that actually happens, when the doors open, because they're not going to be open for long. So if you want to make sure that you're included, sign up, send in your email, get in touch. I would love to hear from you. And if this podcast is serving you in any way, it is so helpful. I've received such amazing messages from people who've been listening, and I'm just so touched every single time someone takes the time and effort to reach out. It really means the world to me. I will be back in a week with another episode. And until then, find your reverence, find what's sacred for you, look for your answers there. Let your inquiry unfold in those quiet spaces, in that unspeakable world. See you in a week.